Hey, Guy Lawrence here. Welcome to my podcast. My beautiful guest today is Sarah Elkhaldy. I was running a workshop and a gentleman come up to me and asked me had I heard of this lady, and I went and checked her out on YouTube, and she has a YouTube channel called The Alchemist, which is quite some name as well. And listening to her content, I felt intrigued and reached out to her to come on the show, which she kindly did, to find out the lady behind her popular YouTube channel. We get into all sorts of esoteric conversations today, and I have no doubt you will get a lot out of it. If you want to find out more about what we do here in Australia with our retreats, workshops, and also our online coaching and programs, all the links are below. We even offer a free 7-day meditation, or 7 days of meditation, I should say. You can use it for as long as you like. And it's very helpful. It starts working with the heart. So if you want to find out any of that as well, all the links are below wherever you're listening to this: YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. If you enjoy the episodes, of course, please leave your thoughts and comments below. That helps to reach to continue more people out there. The algorithms love this stuff. Hitting a subscribe button, a like button, or even a review all helps the cause. Much love. Enjoy this conversation with Sarah, and I'll see you soon. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome. I like speaking off air. I've had a podcast, this particular podcast, for about 4.5 years, and what I find as I get in front of more and more people, with my own journey, who know I have a podcast, they're always, people bring things forward. Have you checked this person out? Have you checked that person out? Have you listened to their work? And that's literally what happened about a week ago. I was running a workshop, and a gentleman came up after and made a point of sharing your work. So you're reaching someone out in a country town in Australia, and then I started listening to some of your YouTube videos on the way back from the workshop, and then reached out the next day. So it's amazing how these things can happen, and here we are talking. So I appreciate you coming on and everything that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I actually have, quite a few clients from Australia. And yeah, I plan on doing a live event there next year. So yeah, to me, it's not random. Me and Australia, yeah, we get along.
It's a good spot. It's a good spot. My question to you is, which I start the show every time, is that if you were at an intimate dinner party right now and you sat next to a complete stranger and said, "What do you do for a living?" what would you say?
I bend light.
And what would the response be to that?
Oh, I don't care. They'd be, oh, really? You bend light? Are you a welder?
Yeah, that's more like it.
Welder of knowledge. I would probably say something very, I would say bend light, to be completely honest with you, because I like getting a rise out of people. And I'm also like low-key an anthropologist. So I like discovering how people will respond to being put off, off keel. So, but yeah, after that, I would say something along the lines of, I'm a healer.
Perfect. No, it's curious because I ask that question every week and speak to many people like yourself, and it's amazing what comes out or how to articulate these things as well. But I'm finding more and more people are certainly open to it once you start exploring. I'm curious to know your journey as well, Sarah. Honestly, I find in the only the week that I've discovered you and researching the podcast, I find you fascinating because you're putting out, incredible content. I feel the authenticity in what you do and what you present out there as well. But I also know there's always a journey behind these, the content that reaches people, from having done, hundreds of podcasts as well. So I want to dive in there, if that's okay.
Yeah, my villain story. You want to know my villain background story?
What is it? Yeah, is there a villain in there as well, or
like how I got these scars? Yeah, absolutely.
So
Where do you
where
want
does it start? Like, where have you always been fascinated by this kind of work, or is it something that you grew into? Was there religion behind it first? Like, I'm curious to know what was your trajectory.
I always had what you could call like inappropriate for my age thoughts. Like when I was very young, I asked my mom to, give me a stronger definition of heaven. And when she did, I did not sleep that night. I was so terrified. I'm like, people are happy to go there. Like I literally could not sleep that night because it sounded like hell to me. What we were supposed to look forward to gave me existential dread, and that never really went away. But on my journey, it has now integrated. And obviously, I don't have the same affinity with those dimensions that she was explaining to me.
Right.
So I've always had like I just came into this life really with no filter, metal to metal when it came to me and infinity. And so I remember, like I tried a lot to be like Christmas, Santa Claus. Like I tried always within all of my rites of passage to assimilate them, but I just never fit in. And that wasn't a part of my design anyways. So anytime I even tried to fit in into anything, it was always just a massive redirection, massive rejection. Um, I've come in pretty much with a very there's no room in my life path, this life. And that's funny because I have a video specifically on purpose and talking about how when it comes to purpose, it's abstract. It's not as definitive as people are making it out to be and all of that.
Hmm.
And that's because specifically doing so is going to relax the energy field so much and give that integration to a person's energy field that they might feel they're starved for. And by doing so, that's going to allow a person to ease into wherever they're at in their own journey. And then from there, start orienting so that it's not this thing that is overwhelming and colossal. It's this, well, in this chapter of my life, this is my journey and this is my purpose within this chapter and so forth. But with me, it was never any degrees of movement, really. My life path from the very beginning led me to where if I wanted to make a left, for instance, there was no ability to make a left. There was only ever metal to metal intensity. And I think that that's what I have been able to really harness in my teachings and in my videos. I think I've been able to really be able to express that, but with a certain level of refinement.
So were you then always clear on where you were going and what you were doing then? Is that what you're saying ultimately?
No, never clarity.
Okay.
Always just being prodded and maneuvered into a space where, like, breadcrumbed into a space that I didn't have a context for. Even so early as to like 5 years ago, before we were all experiencing, the buzzword, the collective meme of quarantine. I was being given that by my guides as a very simple answer as to why just things wouldn't work out for me. I'd look over there and go, they're having fun. I want to do that. I want to have whatever, quarantined. So I was always getting kind of like this. I guess now I'm getting the visual representation of in hockey when you're put in the penalty box. It
Yeah.
wasn't a penalty box, but it was essentially just I've had a very specific purpose. And because of that niche, it's such a niche category of synthesizing, being able to be a synthesizer of really, like metaphysical forces even, that studying the ability for the different avenues of and teachings and thought forms that I have gone down. There's the nicheability has been what has also been very prominent in why just a lot of the reasons I wanted to go in different directions never worked out. And so that's what I was given by my guides. It wasn't like a punishment or penalty, but it was just kind of like, just sit here. You know, like we see a lot of videos sometimes about how to manifest. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to manifest, and we do manifest. But sometimes, if it's going directly against like our intention for this life, if it like we can manifest all the time, but if it's just strictly something that is not a part of the design that we had at the soul level to create for this life, then that's going up against a losing battle. And so I know all of this now. I didn't have a context before. And so when it comes to manifesting, even what we're manifesting has kind of like this, like, is it for your highest good? And if not, then the universe will create you. It will turn you into the version of yourself through life's experiences, through the people, places, and things that then sculpt you into being that version of yourself where that would be beneficial for us. And so that's how I look at my journey. It was a lot of what seemed like just chill here, just hang out, do what you're doing. And then when you're ready, then you can have those manifestations. And so for me, that was pretty much my life path. It's riveting, it's wild, but also at the same time enormously boring because I've spent so much of my life specifically with such a thirst for gnosis, you know.
So the reason why I ask, and I'm proud of you as well, because like again, when I spoke off air, like I grew up in Wales. I didn't have a religious background. I played rugby. I drank a lot of beer. It was a very three-dimensional, existence in terms of who I was, how my identity was, and with the culture and everything around. And I lived a large part of my life with like this deeper knowing there has to be something more that was very heart driven, but I had no evidence around me whatsoever in any other shape or form that there was something more. And that was my journey. So for me, it was very black and white. When then moments started to happen, that just blew my mind. Going, and why this is why I'm going through these challenges. This is why I'm going through these difficulties. And as I come out, it's actually that pressure was allowing me to see the greatness within me. That allowed me to start to express that more and more. So I'm always, that's what I guess I'm prodding now. Was there parts of you where a lot of the things that you share on YouTube and the incredible videos and the information, but moments in your life where you've had to go in to have, I guess, more direct experiences that's allowed you to embody the work more and more on a daily basis, if I'm making
Oh,
sense.
absolutely. Um, all, yeah, being in that penalty box or that,
Mm-hmm.
isolation has been nothing but direct experience. If anything, a lot of the ways I'm experiencing reality at this moment is due to the fact that I had had so much direct experience, meaning that going inward, channeling is a great way to describe it. Having these perpetual revelations, all of that good stuff, and then really not doing much with it at the capacity that it could have. I've always written articles. I've been a guest writer for years with Wake Up World, which is based in Australia.
Okay.
I love Wake Up World. But that's not really like even close to the capacity of my potential having that expressed. And so it's definitely been a journey of balancing these two opposing forces within me, which is the enormous amount of extroverted energy that I've always had my whole life, with this enormous amount of introverted energy. And I describe it in my in my perception, beautifully in one of my poems in my last book of poetry. I called it timid and vain. What a crazy mixture that is. And, it's not, I don't want to paint a picture like I was like this enormously timid, riddled with neurosis person, but there's such a level of introvertedness or even just empathicness that has a lot of vanity or ego to it. And that's what, I let people know in my in-person events, or I let people, clients, whatever capacity, to break people out of whatever neurosis they're being binded by in that moment. um, the strongest medicine is letting people know, like giving them a huge permission slip by saying you're actually just being super egoic by being confined by your own mental limitations.
Yeah.
A person's humbleness can be toxic.
So when did you realize that you were channeling and started channeling? You mentioned that earlier.
I think because it's always been there. This is a funny story. I had a good friend who was highly clairvoyant, super psychic. And she told me one time, she's you're very claircognizant. I'm like, I am? When you're claircognizant, it's this invisible gaslighting that you walk around your whole life with until somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, you're psychic. Because with the other ones, we have clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, and clairsentience. With the other ones, they're a lot more like profound. But when you just know things, and you've gone your whole life doing that, so it's normal to you,
Mm-hmm.
you don't think it's, because it's also not set up the same way that other people channel. I've seen people start channeling, like initiate that in so many different ways. Some of them are super elaborate and dramatic, like in a cool way. And then some, there's always some way that people use to kind of like access that channel, some sort of way of dialing in. I don't have that and I don't need that. So because of that, it was learning my own nature and then how to develop and hone invisible skills from there. Once I did, it was like a huge invisible barrier just completely dissolved in my life.
Yeah, beautiful. And how, I got to ask you then, how do you, or did you, or do you continue to develop that? Because I'm sure a lot of people today might even feel that there's these aspects of them, of that knowing, that intuitive aspect, or whatever sensory experience that they're getting beyond the five senses. But then one of the biggest challenges is having the courage to lean in and start to develop that and trust it and actually live by those principles as well. Because then logic can tend to be thrown out the window.
Absolutely. So I'd say how to continue honing that is by, it's going to sound weird, but completely 100% treating the information you're getting like it's 1,000% real and could be proven by scientists if they put it under a microscope.
Hmm.
And having that level, faith is such a fickle word, but having that level of confidence, I mean, don't get me wrong, like that can be used in such a toxic manner, like everyone can. There's always that polarity when it comes to an energy expression. So being completely irresponsible and then being confident in that direction is, absolutely toxic. But that's why I am so concerned, first and foremost, with integrity. With whatever I'm doing, integrity comes first. Because to me, even if, I'm receiving more of an audience, or if I'm receiving more abundance in all the different ways that abundance can show up, whatever's going on, I go, hold on. I want to make sure that I'm in integrity. And so that even allows me to be a stronger channel. So I would say integrity plus confidence.
Beautiful, beautiful answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a really great way of framing it. Because quite often we go chasing these things without addressing the very things that we need to address, or they keep us distracted from that. You know, um, I'm
Absolutely.
I'm curious as well. There's a couple of things, and I want to lean into the heart a little bit more, because one of the videos that I listened to you when I was driving home was the alchemy of the heart. And I guess there's two things that I want to open the conversation up: is why alchemy, why the alchemist, because that's the name of your YouTube channel, and then what is the alchemy of the heart, and why is the heart such a powerful resource within us?
Great questions. So the first one, why the alchemist? Divine intervention. That's crazy. Okay, I don't know if you are aware of this or if this is hip in Australia, but everyone wants to be the alchemist here. It's like,
Right.
um, the fact that I even got that. So why the alchemist is because I have a very large following on Instagram,
Okay.
and that is my name. And that's kind of like one of those things where it's like, how'd you get the name the alchemist? That's why I say it was divine intervention. Because how did I? Like, uh, I all I can say is that's why I am so concerned with integrity. Because do you know how much people are sending me energy of you got the name the alchemist? It's like I am entirely aware of the fact that having the universe intervene and bestow my Instagram account with that name means that on my part, I acknowledge that that is a large responsibility, and I will pay that
Mm.
back with integrity. So, so that's why. It's because I got that name on Instagram, and when I started my YouTube channel, I needed to keep the brand cohesive. And also, like, that's dope anyways. So it wasn't like, oh, I have to.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. I never even thought of, didn't even occur to me of that side of things as well. I actually remember reading Paul Coelho's The Alchemist 20 years ago. And at the time, that book changed my life, because it allowed me to move to Australia and just surrender and just lean in. Yeah. It was from that book that gave me the courage to do it. So it's um, a word, I guess, that's been very prominent in my life at certain uh, times. So then, why the so what is alchemy then? How would you describe it?
Alchemy is the transmutation of a base metal or consciousness to its most pure and refined state. So, alchemy has been depicted, I would start saying, our spiritual roots of alchemy have started to return to us somewhere. I'd say Carl Jung was the one that started creating the psychosomatic terminology to bring alchemy back, which is funny because literally some materialist alchemists, meaning like they're only concerned with the chemical aspect, the laboratory alchemy, find that to be very, they don't like that. But yeah, I would say that though alchemy, that was the original form of alchemy. It's always been the art of ascension. It's been spiritual transformation. And then from that point, it reflects into the metallic kingdom. So it's a top down art. It's chemical, metal based, but that's the lower expression of the higher expression, which is this is all about what's being prepared is the psyche for the ascension process. So to answer your question, alchemy is the art of ascension.
And just to ensure that we cover everyone, what is ascension then?
Yeah. Ascension is the conscious participation in our own evolution, because we're either ascending or descending, meaning we're either evolving or devolving. And we see that clear as day in our world. We have this huge, chasm between people who are becoming conscious, are moving forward in that direction, to the degree and rate that people are moving in the completely opposite direction. So, and don't get me wrong, I would love for it to be like we're all in this together. I would love for everybody to move in the direction of consciousness, because that would mean there would be less suffering in the world. But the truth of the matter, the thing that I can't override reality, is that people are just as much headed to the opposite end of that consciousness spectrum as people are headed towards the, conscious end of that spectrum. And so with that, we have really ascension being the choice to go with that process of expanding our consciousness and becoming more conscious, because that's the evolutionary process. But when we go, hey, I'm going to participate in this, when we're making that conscious decision, that whole storyline from that point on that plays out is called ascension.
And then I guess once you make that decision, that's when everything begins to shift.
Yeah.
How would you then, or what, I'd love to know your thoughts on it then, if speaking of ascension and of, I guess, the expansion of consciousness, in singular or collectively, then what is the soul's purpose? How would you then describe the soul and its purpose in that? Because again, that is, I guess, something that has you have many different interpretations, beliefs, and forms from around that.
The soul is our eternal nature. So I always like to call the soul the daredevil in our energy field. The soul's the daredevil. Better yet, the soul is Houdini. The soul's like, you want me to chain myself all up and then throw me in the water and then I can't breathe, and then you want to see if I can get out of it. That's the soul. So the soul's the one going, and for my next trick, I will go into Australia and then, go bring light into very dim aspects of that reality that need it. So the soul is a daredevil, and then the conscious mind is the one that can participate consciously in the ride or suffer, because the soul's the one behind the wheel.
I love that analogy. Then why is it such a daredevil? Like, what does it get out of it?
The soul's like an celestial junkie. The soul gets out of it learning more about itself, but also it's eternal. So when you're eternal, you don't have the same perception as when, like when you're eternal, it's hard to cry about certain things because you won't be able to experience grief. You won't be able to experience that, when a loved one dies. And so the soul gets out of it the richest experiences ever, because it gets to stop its own magic. Well, it creates through its magic, but it gets to stop its own perception so that it can play a character and have the richness of that spectrum of emotion and have that spectrum of perception and have that, I was tripping out just the other day at the fact that I got this insight that in a past life, I was like some sort of levitating Eastern master. I started going, whoa. But I see why I would want to be this person now from the US who I wanted to do film at one point. Like I I just have a lot of experiences that are so different from some of the information I get. And I see how, from my soul's perspective, I'm like, I would love nothing more to have a completely different experience than something that I had in this or that. And so the soul gets out of it everything. The soul wins.
Yeah. You've triggered a couple of questions here. The first one is then with with the soul being a daredevil and wanting these experiences, was there a moment in your life then where you felt that you had to put yourself out there more, or nervous too, or was worried about it? Like so that conflict within ourselves. I know I certainly was when like I was telling you, I sold my company and I'm like, I'm going to do what? But there was this just huge pull that I couldn't deny. And like you said, when done with integrity and moving forward, things just opened up in ways I can't even describe, but it was terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. Remember how I was talking about how, like, even though I didn't understand that I walked a line in my path, I was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the groups or the people or the information that I was always drawn to made it to where once I saw, whether it was documentaries, whatever it was, once I got an external permission slip that people were sharing intense content, intense meaning fringe, or even what we would consider conspiracy, that was soul medicine because I've always been intense, but I felt like I never got the mission. So imagine you're just ready for something and
Right.
everyone's acting normal in front of you and you're just like, okay, this is not matching up. You'll start thinking you're mentally ill. You'll start being depressed. You'll start being anxious, all because you're a race car ready to go. And so once I started seeing in my external reality that there was something wrong with reality and that we're in a matrix, I was that was very confirming. And my warrior aspect instantly got activated. So with that instant activation, I started drawing very strict and strong lines in the sand, being that person, that person, if you're at a family gathering or if you're with your group of friends or if you start being that person, really shoving reality down people's throats. And so having that level, I almost call that now like the practice grounds, because continuously strengthening that threshold for conflict, really, that's what it was. I didn't know I was
Mm.
doing it at the time. I was just super passionate. But now I know that even that served a massive purpose because now I have the effortlessness of being the channel I need to. I can say something and not have it come through and need to go through this filter and that, all because getting all of that conflict out of my system. Like, I want to go back in time and make all the people I fought with online pay me because they were getting so much of my energy. And I'm like, I would not ever fight with but at
Mhm.
that time, it was just my warrior aspect was being exercised. And that aspect really needed to have its day, have its dawn, so that now, even if I'm just talking about rainbows, it doesn't matter what I'm talking about. It's not going through a bunch of filters.
Yeah. No, it's important, and I love what you're sharing because it's so easy to put limitations upon ourselves to allow us to fit in, to be a certain way because we're worried about upsetting or how others are going to respond in these moments. And as you start to put yourself out there and more people, obviously it can feel, the perception could be feeling that the pressure is greater, and how we take that on board, you know. So yeah, it's an important point that you raise, which is great. So I do want to look back to the alchemy of the heart in a moment, but I just want to stay in the soul for a sec. And that is then when you mentioned about we get to have these experiences, and we get to have these experiences of grief, like you used the example with that, because as the eternal soul, we're not having those direct experiences there. We're coming into physical form to have them. Do you then feel like our destinies are then predetermined, or is free will having a part in what is being done and said? How do you think it kind of plays out while we're here?
Destiny to me is the goal. Destiny is not a promise. Perhaps you might see in some of my videos that I can take on a more harsher tone. It's so that people understand that you have to earn your destiny. Destiny is a potential. It's kind of like if a writer wrote a bunch of different screenplays and there was one that was the best way that things could go. But then you come in here and you have fate, which a lot of people think is destiny. To me, it's not. That's not how I was taught it, and that's not how I resonate with it. Mm-hmm. You come here and you have fate and you have free will. You have a random variable, that's what free will is, and you have a predetermined variable, that's what fate is. And both of these forces are not opposed to each other. They're used together. And they're used together in their highest potential. They're used together to try to get you into your destiny. In their lowest potential, you can become too passive or too forceful. And that's what I see a lot of people do. They just go, everything's fate, free will is an illusion. The people who even came up with that, I don't think people know where that came from, maybe a few, but the people who, that thought form, that free will is an illusion, came from a very materialism, a very scientific thought form. And it was based off of the Big Bang. And they never pushed the refresh button. They never updated that, because they updated the fact that they don't believe in the Big Bang anymore. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but now they're like, we don't know anymore. We're thinking it's not the Big Bang. So all of their math would have to be off if their first initial conditions are not, in place. So long story short, destiny is the script. It's the movie of your life where you have the best outcome, where the whole story arc of the character comes to from the downward trajectory and then makes it to that hero's journey, that hero's story arc. That's destiny. And fate and free will both do their damnedest to sculpt you into the person who will go claim their destiny. Does that make sense?
Total sense. Yeah, I love it. That's a great analogy. So then, how do we stick to the script?
How do you align with the script where there's the best outcome in a sea of
Correct.
scripts?
Yeah.
I mean, the funny part is I could tell you, but it might cause a lot of pain because, okay, like for instance, when I was in my second course for for the very first energy healing modality that I did, all about the quantum sphere, we did this very casual exercise in there where we align with the highest potential version of ourselves in this quantum exercise. So there's a few different ways that we can stick to that storyline. I didn't realize when I was doing that course that that's what I was doing. So higher self was setting Sarah up to go push the right codes and keys to get that, because apparently I wasn't, apparently it wasn't a strong enough potential at that time. But a way that somebody can do it, mind you, it's not always going to be a nice road if you want to access your destiny and you're not there. And so for me, I didn't realize how, even though I've been on a very strict course walking the line of knowledge, that free will aspect of, hey, I can start a YouTube channel. Hey, I can do this. Hey, I was not utilizing enough of my free will. So even though I was on a very, I was on my path of purpose, I wasn't activating my free will on my path of purpose. And for that, when you start calling in your higher self to help you become your highest version, but if you're not willing to take those action steps to help your higher self out with that, it could go completely south. I don't know. It could go great. I don't want to paint it all as super dangerous. All I'm saying is that to align with that original storyline, you can ask your higher self, help me align with my highest destiny. But I'm not saying, depending on a person, depending on their unique path, depending on their soul contracts, depending on what they came in here to choose to experience, it doesn't mean that that will get you there in the loveliest manner. And it did not for me. But I'm here.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I totally hear you. So then, do you think this road, like, how can I, do you think it has to be tough and arduous and challenging? Because I so often hear that when people lean into this work, oh, my life's falling apart, it's all so hard, everything's just breaking down. Why does it have to be so difficult? And I guess my question to you is, does it? Or can it be a much more centered way? Or do we have to go through these heroes' journeys to get the message?
This is going to sound awful, but it kind of has to be that way because the soul wanted it that way. It's kind of like, how can the butterfly become a butterfly without using its own enzymes to dissolve its matter into liquid in order to crystallize in a higher form? So those struggles are the enzymes being released from the caterpillar in its cocoon to dissolve itself. How intense is that? The caterpillar is saying, I'm going to dissolve myself. That's like, this is no plug, but that's like my first poetry book, How to Set Yourself on Fire. That's why I named it How to Set Yourself on Fire. And that's the soul going, I'll set myself on fire. So the question is, does it have to be arduous? And the answer is, it would need to be arduous in order to birth the version of ourselves that is the butterfly, because it's through that struggle, through that arduousness, that is molding us and shaping us into that final project. And to not have those lessons and those experiences upon our life path, there's no other way that we could cultivate the discernment to become that version of ourselves, or cultivate the integration that would call for, the consciousness. So then the question becomes, to the degree of arduousness, because there's always going to be struggle and strife, but then how much of that is because we are not going along with our conscious participation? That is where the free will comes into play. So there's always going to be trials and tribulations. Where our free will comes into play is how much we're utilizing those to either not repeat our cycles, so that we're not, inflicting unnecessary suffering in our life, or how to get the gold within the cave as gracefully as possible. There's so many times where I looked back at a chapter of my life and I got mad at myself and I went, I wish you did that more gracefully. And so that's just pointing me to where I can be more unconditionally loving. But that's because I'm so aligned with my soul. Even that isn't like, wow, that's ego, you wish you did that better, because that's the soul's perspective. The soul's perspective can sometimes look a lot like its opposite. The soul's perspective can be like, how much heat can I take without screaming?
Yeah. No, okay. So then, what would you say to someone in this moment listening that is in that cocoon? right now?
Take minerals.
No, that's a good look after the body. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. Yeah.
Yeah, really, because that'll determine a lot of trajectories of how. Okay, so it's vital to know that when you're in that cocoon, you're actually in a deep decompression. What's happening is we're decompressing our consciousness. We needed to compress our consciousness all the way down the densities. We needed to compress our consciousness into this reality. And then we decompress. And when we decompress, it's really intense. And so that decompression of our consciousness is experienced as depression, as anxiety, as feeling stuck, as not having any motivation, as having paralyzed will. All of that is true. And yet, those are the symptoms of a decompression. Knowing that might help the person start shifting their focus into, if I'm truly decompressing from an existential compression, from an existential being in sleep or unconsciousness, then how can I utilize rest or play in ways that will help this process along? For me, it was poetry. I never made the conscious connection that the thing that I did naturally my whole life, like who has poetry notes in their phone? I never made that connection until I was so desperate for any reason to have, life force. When you have dead will, you'll pull anything from the ether just to give you life. And it wasn't until I was in that paralysis of will that I went, screw it. I'm gonna, self-publish a poetry book. So poetry is what gave me life. But it's because that's my version of play. So if people are able to understand that what they're doing might not seem it, but is far more important than they might be able to conceive at that moment, and then go, well, how can I help this process in a supportive way? Find what gives you life. Even find how to play so that you can integrate it better, because that process is going to be harder without what will allow that natural process to unfold, and that's integrating. So it just becomes a question of how much time. If this cake needs to bake, it's in the oven, can I make it easier? Yeah, we can do this, this, and this to make it easier. The pressure of people needing to have their purpose figured out, needing to have this and this and this, is the opposite of what's going to relax the energy field enough to decompress and therefore integrate. And who knows, maybe that very thing that the person uses to decompress or to play might end up being a part of their purpose.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Isn't that so? Again, it comes back to being in the moment, doesn't it? And surrendering and making sure you bring some joy, some fun in there. Like you say, to play, and also allowing things to move when they need to move, or not force them, which is what we tend to do. We're always striving it to be quicker, faster, happens. We can just get out of it as opposed to being with it. That's for sure. I know I was very guilty of that. I got to close this loop because I opened it like half an hour ago, and I'll close that loop before we type the podcast. And that's the alchemy of the heart.
Oh,
It's been sitting with me. Why the heart, and how would you define that? And why is this such an important aspect of ourselves when leaning into this work?
so the heart is the occult anatomy of what's really happening is, how the heart is known as the prime generator in the body, even if it's not seen anymore as a pump or a motor, it's the main facilitator of that whole process in the body. Not even our lymphatic system has that. So knowing how key the physical anatomy of the heart is showing that the metaphysical corresponding nature of the heart is that it is the life, it's how we are created. And so how that shows up in the energy field is you could look at the heart like as the energy center. I'm not even talking at this point about the chakra. I'm talking about beyond the chakra. The heart as the energy center is the prime projector. It's projecting this reality. We might think that that's coming from the mind, but the heart is the projector of this reality. So when we're like, how do we even get in a 3D? Like, how is this physical? Like, it's because we're all emanating from the heart center to be in the third dimension. So the heart's very important because the story arc that we have been on in this reality has been one where we've been experimenting with the lack of heart. So it's almost like, let's hide the truth. Let's hide the truth and see what we become by playing with this without this truth. And then let's go, ta-da! Let's reveal the truth when that story arc's coming to its climax. And so the heart's so important. It always was. But the reason why it's so important in this age especially is because we're understanding it not just to be unconditional love, but looking at unconditional love from even physics, looking at unconditional love as the unified field of consciousness. So the unified field of consciousness is expressing itself through the anatomy, the esoteric anatomy of the heart. And then the physical representation of that is through how important our physical anatomy of the heart is. It's central. You know, I don't need to tell you, a person can live without a gallbladder. They can't live without a heart. But yeah, it's unconditional love is not an emotion. It's a force field. So unconditional love is why the heart is so important. And if we were to feel unconditional love, because it's not an emotion, what it would feel like is emptiness.
Yeah, fascinating. I just found on my own journey that how disconnected from my heart in some respects. Remember, I was saying at the beginning, I was so something in my heart. I knew there was something deeper, but I didn't realize that it was actually a guiding force, and it was closed off for so long, and through that closing off, it was keeping me disconnected from something far greater, one that was ever present anyway. I just wasn't allowing it to flow through freely. And once I understood about opening my heart, then it became a much more, I guess, compass, clarity that allowed me to continue to lean into this work. And that's why I'm very passionate about the heart, just through experience more so than knowledge, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I would certainly encourage people to delve into that more, and especially that video you did, the Alchemy of the Heart. I thought it was great, by the way. You know.
Yeah, I will definitely be doing more about the heart. That's my guidance is very interested and focused on heart-centered consciousness.
Beautiful, beautiful. Just to wrap it up, I'm aware of the time for myself as well. I ask a question on two questions. One, do you have any daily habits, rituals, or routines that you do, or do you just kind of live the work, or
Yeah.
do you have practices as well?
It's funny because I'm a double Leo. I'm a Leo sun and moon. So structure, ritual is something I love and yet oppresses me. So I go in cycles. I become
Okay.
very obsessed with things in cycles. And so I applaud anyone who is just, I've had this same morning ritual, or I've had the same, thing for years. Like, I just applaud that. I could never. So for me at the moment, what I love doing in the morning is really just watching videos on astrology. I know that doesn't sound too exciting, but I'm going to spiral out of it. But right now I'm really interested in learning, like, for instance, I just learned about a few months ago about the planet Vulcan. So that's fun. Yeah. Typically my whatever ritual comes into play will usually be something about expanding my base of knowledge, since that's what I'm
Okay.
really into. But yeah, I wish I could tell you yoga. I want to say yoga, but it's not.
That's perfectly fine by me, that's for sure. My yoga is not that great, I can assure you. But and last question is, with everything we've covered today, is there anything you want to leave the listeners to ponder on?
Yeah. That a lot of the times we feel like, because we're really into one thing, or because we've learned this new thing in our knowledge bank, that might disregard or negate some other thing. And a lot of the times what's really happening is that we're adding to our perspective. So it's not going this or that. But humanity at large right now, the huge issue with humanity right now, which is making my job easy, but not for humanity, is that it's not always, it's rarely an either or. And so with that, if there's ways that a person would challenge themselves, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Don't force things, but I challenge a person to see how whatever they once thought, or whatever teachings, whatever perception they once held, can actually coexist with where they are now, but in a way where both of those perceptions have now somehow created an alchemy to where it's led to something that's larger than the sum of their parts. That's just a nice little challenge. It's the 3-day challenge of triangle of perception. Seeing that point, and then where perhaps there was an overlap, and then something that created a synergy. That's at least where humanity's next step is at the moment. So that's why I say that.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Where can we send people if they want to find out more about your work? Clearly, you've got a great YouTube channel going on as well. So I'll make sure the links are in the show notes. But if you could say them out loud as well, that would be great.
Yeah. So my website, thealchemist.community, that's where you could, sign up for my newsletter. That's where you could see, there's links to my social media through there. I have articles, all of that fun stuff. That's where I put when I have my alchemy retreats. And then, yeah, through my YouTube channel, The Alchemist is what has proven a few times. When I pop that up, I come up first. And that's how people could find my content on there, my videos. And that's where I'm designating the most attention, love, passion, and focus at the moment. So if you want to find me anywhere, you could find me on my website or on YouTube.
On YouTube. Beautiful. Yeah. Well, Sarah, thank you for taking the time and coming on the podcast today. I really enjoyed the conversation and appreciate what you're doing. And I'll be sure to share it with my community here and support the work as
Thank you so much.
continues to grow more and more. You're welcome, Sarah. Thank you.